الو.
حضورنا الكرام, our amazing attendees, invitees, your excellencies, if you could just please have a seat so we can start with the most amazing inspirational session and the most amazing hanger talks with the most amazing personalities as well. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله جميعا، واللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أبغى أستأذنكم، أبغى أتكلم بالإنجليزي اليوم. Ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, your royal highnesses, we are honored to start the first day of Hangar Talks, and we are in full preparation to have the most inspirational aviation journey in Saudi Arabia. To start off, we have His Royal Highness Prince Sultan bin Salman, and Prince Sultan, the amount of inspiration, the amount of achievements you've done towards the aviation industry is something that all of us are proud of. And if you would allow me, we would love to start, Your Royal Highness, with a word from you, representing as well His Excellency Abdul Hadi. Your Royal Highness? Yes, please.
صباحكم الله بالخير. السلام عليكم. Good morning. I think we're going to do this in English. أول شيء أرحب بالجميع ومعالي الأخ عبد الهادي. حقيقة نحن سعيدين اليوم رئيس الطيران المدني. We're very happy today that the head of the Saudi Civil Aviation Commission that is really making huge changes in Saudi, and especially for general aviation. I'm very thankful for you for saying all these good things about me. I've been telling Mr. Ken Hoffman, who's been with me since 1979, every time he meets people, he should tell them I'm the best pilot in the world and I'm the most inspiration. It doesn't work, so thank you very much. I hope he learned how to do it. This lady has got 2 million followers on the internet, and a great smart lady. And her grandfather was one of the smartest people in Saudi Arabia, his late grandfather, whom I knew very well. So we're very happy that you're here. And now you're going to learn how to fly, correct?
Yes.
Good. حقيقة, I'm very happy that we have this energetic young leader of civil aviation in Saudi Arabia today, a man who comes from the business world, and he coordinates thoroughly with what we do. And civil aviation is going to really next levels. The new airports, the new airspace systems, and very complex technology developments and so on. So we have all the cooperation we can ever wish for with the Civil Aviation Board today. I say that thoroughly from conviction, really. I worked with civil aviation as a member of the Civil Aviation Board. I chaired the development of the King Khalid Development Commission. I'm a pilot. I was the only pilot sitting on the commission board, so I was the defender of pilots and their rights and so on. It took a while to get the Saudi Aviation Club rolling. It took us years to get people to believe that this can happen. Now there are hundreds of pilots in Saudi and hundreds of airplane owners. So this is fantastic. So I want to introduce first my friend, Minister Abdul Hadi, to come up here and do his presentation. He says that he has a couple of surprises for us. Let's see whose license is going to be lost today. All yours.
معاليك صباح الخير. يا ربي لك الحمد. We are honored to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And we cannot wait to hear about what's going to happen in the aviation industry in Saudi Arabia with your new appointment.
شكرا.
Please, yes, of course, if you can have a seat here, and we can start. Your Excellency, mashallah, your reputation precedes you. This is the first thing I have to say. And secondly, we know that you've been newly appointed to GACA, the General Authority of Civil Aviation. And we would love to know and hear more about what are the main goals that you have in mind to implement in GACA going forward.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. Your Highness Prince Sultan bin Salman, Chairman of General Aviation Club, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and I'm very humble for what His Royal Highness have says, and he raised expectation, and hopefully I will be up to that expectation. طبعا GACA is an institution that been there for since the inceptions of the first airport in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The organization for the past several months طبعا have been going through review of its own strategy. We have strategies that's going to be refreshed, and eventually the execution of that strategy, inshallah, will reposition the aviation sector within of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and where it deserves it, inshallah. We have, as His Royal Highness have mentioned earlier, we have a fantastic airport that he have led at some times to become one of the first 3 airports that has been privatized. So we looked at Riyadh, Dammam, and Medina. طبعا Medina is a totally different perspective. I was just talking to one of the gentlemen earlier today about the private sector participations on the developments of this sector. So, you know, through GACA, there are several activities that has been undertaken, and you know, this is not Abdul Hadi activities. So I'm going to be the one of many of others that they will be contributing to the sectors. So recently we have had discussions with so many main stakeholders, including the General Aviation Club, because they play a major role on the economical impact, inshallah, of the organization. يعني I see that the majority of His Royal Highness guests are coming from North America.
That's true.
Okay,
and we're honored to have you all here.
So if you look at just the general aviation in US and how much it contribute, I think the general aviation, the last year data shows that general aviation generates $150 billion economical activities annually. So this is a huge number and huge figures. طبعا
150
billion US dollar it generates through various activities that been taking place. But طبعا the general aviation, the US, we don't look at it as only sport as we do here in the kingdom.
Yes.
They look at it from all to multi layers. So you know, when we were revising our strategy at the general aviation, we did not look only on infrastructures and how we operate airport, how we can have a state-of-art airports. And they are part of the priorities. But we looked at our strategy and how aviation sector eventually will contribute to our economy. How many jobs could be created by direct or indirect investment in the aviation sector, including the general aviation. The public and private sector participation, how many SMEs could be developed out of that sector. So there is a huge activities has been developed. You know, we are already in the process to get it approved, inshallah. And when it's approved, it's going to be not going to be the sole responsibility of the General Authority of Civil Aviation to execute it. It's going to be the responsibility of many of the stakeholders that eventually will take the aviation sectors into the level that deserves.
This sounds extremely promising, and it is honestly beautiful to see such a young leader in a needed industry to be revolutionized and to be improved as well. So one of the main questions that I believe all of us want to know are, what are the key challenges and the key solutions as well that you believe to foresee in the future within GACA?
Well,
that's a hard question, right?
There are hard questions, but thanks for the compliment that he said, young leader.
You are.
You know, I have quite a good number of years of experience, but and again, hopefully that I will be working together with my team to inspire the youth that they came and joined our organization. طبعا microphone. طيب. Okay. So I think there are so many challenges, and today We discussed them. I was meeting Captain Aid and a couple of individuals at the General Aviation Club. الأخ فهد العليان as well. So we do share a lot, some of their concerns, some of the challenges that they see from the general aviation, but also from the aviation sector in the kingdom. We do have a lot of challenges. Infrastructure, training facilities, developing talents to take a major role in the future to promote these sectors. However, I think those challenges are yet to be addressed. Some of them has been already resolved, but the remaining yet to be, inshallah, through collaborations with so many stakeholders, we will address them, we will resolve them, and we will turn them into an opportunities. And if we don't admit that there are challenges, we definitely will not move anywhere. And I tried to highlight some of the challenges that His Royal Highness have set a committee to meet with GACA from time to time and address of those challenges. And maybe because of the venue here, I'll just focus maybe in the general aviation challenges. If you look at the several countries within Europe or North America, thousands of airports that are, or facilities that are available for general aviations. We do have two here in the kingdom, okay? And there are so many causes of this. One, unfortunately, we haven't had a clear vision. His Royal Highness, when I met him upon my appointment, he have asked me, and being the chair of the general aviation and being a very passionate individuals loving that sector, we should develop a very exciting strategy, and hopefully with his great support and general aviation, we will be able to execute it to ensure that we can take the general aviation into a different level. This is one. So the infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of training facilities. So training facilities, unfortunately, we don't have even a simulation center in Riyadh. Rabiq wings established in Jeddah. We have a couple of efforts been developed by Saudi, but mainly for Saudi staff. We have academy that's been established in Dhahran, which is unfortunately unaffordable by many of those who would like to be part of that, to enjoy being a pilot or to practice and being a pilot on commercial or private sector. So the training, the infrastructure, and ease of doing business. If I don't mention this, and I think I will disappoint my colleagues at the general aviation, the ease of doing business with GACA, the many papers that we would require to get permits, to get license, the complexity that we have realized them, they have shared them, they were very transparent with us, we do accept them, and eventually, and as being responsible of this institution, we will work together with them, and inshallah, in year 2020, an online platform, this is a target that we set for ourselves, will ease the business and will set to become, inshallah, a role model for others, to look at. And this is not something that we want to do because, as I mentioned in the earlier questions, the general aviation should not be looked at being an activities for joy. This is something that we can take it to create so many jobs and also promote the industry and take it to the next level.
General aviation is a major part, as you mentioned, Your Excellency, is a major part of every economy. More than that, having pilots means you have the talents that will risk and that will actually go on flight planes and will make a living out of it. In general, what are the key decisions that you want to take going forward in the future or that are under preparation within the general aviation industry, aside from the infrastructure and aside from the training, the main, most important decisions that you want to take?
والله there are I don't طبعا look أنا we work in institutions so unfortunately I will not be able to announce something today but the only things that I could say we are looking at various activities within GACA to promote the general aviations. So we are looking at the economical part, fees that has been that are issued for participants at the general aviation. So this is a promise has been undertaken. So we have to go through the process to get it executed. I did promise His Royal Highness, and he was expecting me to announce it. But what I could announce, Your Excellency, and for the members of the General Aviation, inshallah, this year we will have policies that will, policies and review of the charges that has been already implemented. Would it be landing fees, ATC?
Music to my ears.
Inshallah. The way we're going to do it, we have to do it طبعا يعني if we would announce it, I'm going to be upsetting the other commercial sides. It is that the final stage has been already shared with the board and we've been directed to look at it again and hopefully sometimes during 2020 we will share it. We will have a one-to-one discussion. We don't want to announce it before even discussing the output with our colleagues at General Aviation. And then, inshallah, before the next forum next year, we will be able to celebrate the announcement of a new direction to promote this industry.
That is music to my ears, and I'm sure it's music to every single pilot's ears as well. I mean, a lot of these incentives will incentivize even non-aviators to learn aviation because you have all of these incentives and online training programs as well that are coming up. The last question, Your Excellency, is extremely important to me personally because I'm a female pilot and I'm a Saudi female pilot, and it's extremely important to see more and furthermore female participation within the aviation industry. If we come and look at global average towards female participation in the world in aviation, we see that it's less than 7%. And my question to you is, again, very personal to me, but I really want to hear, inshallah, a positive answer, and I know you are planning for something like that. What are your plans, Tal Umrak? What are your plans to incentivize Saudi females and females in general to participate more in the aviation industry in Saudi Arabia?
طبعا maybe we'll divide it into two sections. أول شيء الحمد لله empowering of women's is something that we don't look at it now يعني at this stage. يعني they already been giving the opportunities equally among the other gender. Female play a major role on our society, and I'm sure they will play a major role in the aviation sector. طبعا maybe if I look at it from my institution, women are playing a major role. I have had I don't have to name them all, but there were great numbers of women participated, engineers participated on the development and the construction of King Abdulaziz Terminal 1 that was inaugurated last year by the custodian of the two holy mosques, Allah yahfadhu. So yesterday I was in a visit with the chairman of the board into Riyadh Airport. Two site engineers, they were not an architects, they were not sitting back in the office. There were two women are part of the organization, were managing the function. So on the policy side, in the economical sides, in other supporting services within the organization. So women to me, and I've been in the HR field for the past 20 years, I don't look at them as target. When we look at a potential candidate or employee within the organization, we don't look at the genders, we look at their capabilities and how much they could contribute into the sectors. So, alhamdulillah, with the great support of the leadership, with the right policies in place, they have the right, inshallah, the right courage to, if they have that courage, they will have the right and equal opportunity to grow within the organization. Now, on the aviation being pilots and other professions within the aviation sector, I think this is still this is something still need to be taken care of by being the regulator. And the regulators, we don't distinguish. If a woman want to have a pilot license, if she has the courage and guts to become a pilot, all airlines would encourage this. We have Freddie, Captain Yasmin in Flynas. We have you, and we have others have had that courage to become a pilot, and they do practice this. And they've been competing with their male colleagues. I don't know, but it seems that this sector has been dominated by males for years. Women will take their place. A couple of weeks ago, we have had a couple of sessions within GACA. We take a full responsibility. We need to go into schools. We go into university. We do share with them the organization. We are hoping soon, when we have the simulation center in Riyadh, take school trips. This is something that we did when we were trying to promote the other professions, such as nurses, doctors, for female within our society. So we do take responsibility. However, would it be the regulator, the business sector, like the commercial airlines? I think we all have equal opportunities. And myself, I feel sometimes myself and my son dominated by the female. They have 4 daughters and my wife, so they always, the women have they have greater contribution to our society, and I'm sure within GACA, as well as the airlines industry and other services within the airlines, will play a major role. The only thing is required is from you, Adwa, and the rest of females, in whom they should have that courage. Yes, I want to become a pilot, I want to become a flight attendant. Yesterday I was looking at the numbers, and we have about 14 Saudi female now as a flight attendants. We have no limits. We have opened thousands of jobs by the airline carriers to promote this fantastic professions for female within our community. So I think it maybe require us to do more educational school visit, and inshallah they will continue to play with men and contribute to the prosperity of the kingdom, inshallah, of Saudi Arabia.
God willingly, and we cannot wait to see GACA and Saudi aviation as well having a huge part in incentivizing female participation and in revolutionizing بإذن الواحد الأحد the entire industry in Saudi Arabia.
شكرا جزيلا وشكرا سمو الأمير. I wish you all in the next few days enjoyable and fantastic event, inshallah.
It's already enjoyable with the first session we have today. شكرا ليك, thank you so much. Again, we're off to an amazing start, a very inspirational start to hear about the future. Going forward, the most incredible story, one of the most incredible stories that we have heard, and truly a pioneer in the aviation industry in Saudi Arabia. And even the space industry, a part of its creation was done partially by our next speaker, Your Royal Highness, Prince Sultan bin Salman. Please give me the biggest round of applause to hear a 1-hour talk from Your Royal Highness, Prince Sultan bin Salman.
Good morning again. So, you give a pilot 1 hour, I mean, that's a big mistake to talk. So, I don't know what to do, to start by bragging or by...
Let me brag for you. So, mashallah, tabarakallah, I'm sure Prince Sultan does not need any bragging, and I'm sure all of you know him. But one of the, most historical making events in the world was when Prince Sultan participated and went to space and became a payload specialist in 1985, correct? And he stayed there for 7 days in space. Prince Sultan, mashallah, tabarakallah, has made history not only in the aviation industry, but in all industries that involve risk-taking activities because of a bigger sake, because of a bigger goal. I want to thank you, first of all, for everything you've done. And I want to thank you for all of this energy that you gave to the entire Saudi nation and to the entire world as well. Prince Sultan was the first Arab to ever go to space. Aside from that, Prince Sultan has had multiple contributions towards the tourism industry in Saudi Arabia, towards the aviation industry in Saudi Arabia, and aside from all of that, he is the founder and chairman of the Saudi Aviation Club. Prince Sultan, I don't know where to start. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. But I believe, did I brag enough, or should I keep on going?
No, I'll do the bragging myself.
I can keep on going as well. Prince Sultan, I'm sure we can take 5 hours, not just 1 hour. But I believe one of the first items of discussion is we all want to hear about your journey into space. And aside from that, how did it change you after you came back to Earth?
Well, thank you very much, Adwa. I'm very glad you're here. And I want to thank also now my friend Saad Al-Wa'lan. If you could stand up, Saad. Saad contributed this fantastic hangar and other things. Saad is an aviator. I call him the truck driver because his family started in the Wadi, hauling dirt to farms and doing businesses that were in the early years. And so no matter what he flies, I call it a truck driver. I call him, where is your truck? Where is your... So Saad is a good friend, a great aviator. And Fahad, his brother, is here, who are really been the forefront of general aviation. Like I said, you know, you give a pilot a microphone and tell them to talk about themselves. You know how many pilots we have here? We can have like 6 days with these guys bragging and taking credit for everything they did do and didn't do. Of course, pilots, you said, I'm taking risks. We never take risks. You know, pilot never take risks, right, Ken?
Calculated risks, is that the word?
Head of the civil aviation sitting here, we never take any kind of risk. But truly, my life has been imprinted by aviation. Maybe I should start with a story that relates to the space mission.
Yes, please.
This story is published in my book, 7 Days in Space. It's a true story. In 1969, as small boys, Fahad, my late brother Fahad, who was my mentor, Allah yarhamah, or myself went with my father, who is now King Salman. And then we went to the first graduation of the King Faisal Academy for Air Force. At that point, I used to see my father. My father became a member of, he wanted to be in the military before he was appointed sort of an interim governor of Riyadh by his brother Naif and King Saud, of course. And then he thought he was going to do 3 months in this job and then go to the King Abdulaziz Military Academy. That's a true story. King Salman wanted to be a soldier. So we have our Egyptian friends here. We fought with Egypt during the war for the Suez Canal, with the 3 powers trying to occupy it. And we fought defending ourselves from Egypt in 1962. That's when I used to see my father wearing his volunteer military clothes and going to training with King Fahad and the younger princes those days. So I wanted to be a soldier. But 69 was a turning point for me. When I went to the graduation and I saw the lightnings. We used to have these lightnings and these fighter jets. And I saw the first graduates of the Air Force. That's it. That was a defining moment. I didn't want to be a soldier. I wanted to be an Air Force pilot.
And mashallah, you became one.
Well, I'll tell you, the story is very strange, actually. I tell the story a lot in schools because people sometimes, some things happen to you. You may think they're the wrong thing at the time, but if you give them time, if your intention is correct, something better is going to happen to you later in life. And I'm sure all of you have had these things happen to you. So we got out of the graduation. King Faisal was there, a great man, a grand man. We sat in the car in the back seat, and I put my hands on the front seat from the back, and I turned to my father and I said, sir, I don't want to go to school anymore. I want to be an Air Force pilot. He paused for a minute. He said, you know, all my life I wanted to be a soldier. He said that. So he said, why don't you finish your middle school, and then the military college here used to take kids who are to finish high school in the military college. And he said, if you get the grades, you can be an Air Force pilot. Those days, there were no Twitter, Facebook, anything like that. So I went to Riyadh, the smaller Riyadh those days, and I roamed all the streets telling people I know or I don't know that I'm going to be an Air Force pilot. Well, fate has a different plan for me because I got hit by a virus that hits children, sort of a rheumatism kind of thing. So I literally froze all my joints. You know, this man that you see climbing mountains and running and doing marathons and things, I literally was almost like frozen. So I couldn't move anything. It's a virus that could have killed me.
Your Highness, this happened overnight?
Yeah, it happened when I was in eighth grade. So this virus could have killed you as a growing boy if I didn't treat it or if I exercised. So literally, my plans were changed. I was told I spent a year in bed. I was allowed to get out of bed once a day, being carried around. People don't know that. So I don't know how I ended up even with the disabled causes here, because that mentally that has nothing to do with it, but maybe it's fate to pay back for getting well. So my plans to go to the Aviation Academy changed until 1974. I've always wanted to be a pilot. So we were sitting the night before we left, and those days, the parents and mothers were not used to their children traveling to the US and going to school the early years. So sitting with my father and my late mother and my brothers, and we were saying sort of a good night, a goodbye night, having dinner to go to the States. And my mother was really sad. We're going away for such a distance. We're going to Santa Barbara. So I said, as soon as I come to the States, I'm going to learn to fly, just small planes. So my mother said, no way, don't do that. And my father said to me, he said, do what you have to, and later she'll be convinced. And there is a great story for her, because women, to me, is not a new thing. Remember, I spoke about that on TV very bluntly. I don't think Saudi Arabia would have been a country today without the women of Saudi Arabia.
Of course.
Truly.
Of course.
And I grew up in an environment where women had played, and still do, a great role. My daughters, my nieces, and all that, they're all excellent in schools. They're all people like yourself. And the women of Saudi Arabia will surprise people who think that they need to be introduced to the world. Women in Saudi Arabia are already ahead of the game, really. So I went to the States. Fate has it. We went to California, to Arizona. Anyway, I ended up in Denver. And I called a friend of mine, Saudi Swayel, and I said, find me an instructor, flight instructor. He found me a gentleman called Jack Metter, who passed away. And the first day we met Jack, my late brother Fahad and myself, and another gentleman who also passed away, Fahad Dosiri. Ken knows him very well. We went and he put us in a Cessna 172. So I was supposed to sit in the back. So I said, I'm not sitting in the back. I want to fly.
That was your first,
my
first flight ever?
First flight in a small
1972?
76.
76.
So I said to Jack, I said, look, I'm going to wait, take my brother and the other gentleman, but when they come back, I want to spend a lot of time with you and see if this is for me. While I waited in the airport, Ken remembers the gentleman, a gentleman named Ivy Simmons, who was actually a guy that started the airport, and there was a Cessna flight school there and so on. He came to me. He was sort of a cowboyish kind of look. And he said, are you waiting for Jack? I said, yes. He said, do you want to go fly with me until they come back? I said, sure. So he put me in a biplane. You know what a biplane is? A plane with two wings, open cockpit. I'm from Saudi Arabia. I've never seen this before in my life, not even the movies. So he puts me in the front. He said, there is no communication between us. It's a true story. And it's published in the book. He said, there's no communication between us, but if you feel anything, do this. I'm in the front. I didn't know what he was talking about. Just a plane. So we took off, and I had a big head of hair. And as soon as we took off, it's a biplane with a tail wheel, and took off, and I didn't even know what happened. And then he flips the airplane.
Oh, wow.
So
Your
I'm
first
hanging
flight?
with the straps. If I changed, what would have changed my mind about flying? That would have been the moment. I was hanging with my straps, looking down, and there are cows and power lines, and
Oh my God.
and I'm trying to put my hand on my head because I'm feeling, I didn't know if the belts will hold. So I'm doing this and I can't. So he started doing loops and rolls and
What were you doing at that time?
just
were
keeping,
your hands here?
just keeping quiet and
Praying.
and hoping this will end soon. But the story I'm coming to, we landed. My hair looked 10 times bigger. We landed, and my brother Fahad came. And Allah yarhamu. And then he said, "What, are you flying this?" I said, "Yes." He said, "How was it?" I said, "Great, you should try it." I think my crime was to tell my brother to go fly because he went. First of all, he lost his glasses rolling, and he didn't like the experience, and that was it for him. He said, "I don't think I want to do this anymore." So that was a big mistake. But anyway, I continued with Jack Metter, and flying and all of that. I want you to stand up, if you don't mind, Perwez. Captain Perwez came with a great guy, Salim bin Laden. He was he was just a great aviator. Sit down if you like. And I landed one day from a solo flight. I soloed at 9 hours. And I didn't think there was anything to the books. I wanted to fly, not study. That's why I failed my written exams twice.
Like a true pilot.
Absolutely. And I soloed at 9 hours. Salim bin Laden landed in a Hawker, a jet. So somebody came to me and he said, "There's a guy named Salim and his people in a Hawker, and he wants to see you." So Salim is a good friend. He's a crazy aviator. He passed away, but he's a great guy. I mean, I wish he was here. Sit down, Captain Perwez. He had this guy with him in 1976. So they put me in the cockpit, left seat. They started the airplane. They said, "Go ahead and take off." That was a big mistake because from that flight onwards, all I wanted is to fly a jet.
Nothing else.
Ken told me one time when I told him, we need a faster plane. He said, "Look, no matter how fast you go, you will always want a faster plane." So after that, I had my ambition to fly faster planes, helicopters, and so on. So this gentleman, if you can stand up, Ken, if you can. Ken has been a mentor to me and a great friend until today. We still restore airplanes together. We still fly together. We roamed around the world in airports that you cannot imagine, unlit airports, night flights to islands, changing direction in midair. I remember, Ken, one time we leased a Learjet, and we landed in California to visit my brothers. And Ken said to me, "What time do we take off back to Colorado on Sunday?" And I know Abdul Hadi would like that story because he can use that same sentence. I said, "Well, around 5 o'clock. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be ready at 5 o'clock. The airplane will be ready. And if you don't show up, I'll wait 15 minutes. And if you don't show up, I'll wait some more." So I use that when I talk about bigger people than I myself. But from that onwards, and the story is being told now in a great book, I hope that will be published. It's called My Life on Wings, with David Hipschman. Where's David? He's here, I think. He's interviewing people. He's Dave.
David.
And I think the book, you have to believe everything in the book. There is no bragging, no lying, nothing,
Is that a wink I just saw between you
It's
two?
coming, it's coming, inshallah.
When is the book going to be published?
But the
inshallah?
story is that aviation story, moving to jets, Ken got me involved, and helicopters, and Ken remember stories when I left him in the middle of the desert in Colorado. He went to pick up a parachute for the FAA, and the helicopter, and then I just took off and went and left him, among other stories. What happened is that, now we're talking about 1969, when I hoped I'd be an Air Force pilot. Space mission. The space mission came. The coincidence was I was in California in 1983, and I was invited. I was working on an airplane project, an airplane designed by Bill Lear. So I was working with his wife, Maya Lear. They called the Lear fan, the airplane. A fantastic airplane, very fast, 400 knots plus. So I got involved in the test pilot program. So I used to fly with Don Madonna and the test pilots and so on. But then the project stopped because the oil prices tanked. It was designed to be very efficient. First composite airplane ever. Now everybody's using composite. So it is really ahead of the curve. And it has 2 engines, 1 propeller in the back, a pusher, and that thing just went crazy. I mean, the airplane is fantastic and well done. So I went by chance to visit Northrop Grumman to convince them to come and invest in this thing, and other people. Then I went by coincidence, I think it's Grumman, who was doing the simulator for the space shuttle. This is really a true story. Before that, we were in Denver with some friends, and we learned the space shuttle is being carried by a 747, if you remember this story. So we went to Denver Stapleton International Airport at that time. We went to the parking, 4th floor of the parking, the car parking, and we watched the fog. And about 200 feet, 300 feet, we can't see the airplane. We can hear that commentary. And then you can see the 747 nose coming first, and then all of a sudden there is another thing on top of it, the space shuttle. And that was John Young and Bob Crippen, and they became friends, the first shuttle astronauts. As soon as they landed, when I went to Grumman, and I said, they told me there's the simulator of the space shuttle. This is way before the space shuttle mission. So that's how things work in life. So I flew the simulator. I landed it very well. So that was the story. But in '84, end of '84, the space mission story came, and I got involved with Air Force pilots and so on. And then they chose 3 people, and the whole story is being told. Finished the space mission, which is a great mission, really, and enjoyed it very much and learned a lot from it. Saw the perspective of this very small planet that we keep fighting each other for,
The blue dot.
thinking that everybody's living in a different planet. That's why we're in the Space Commission now. We have a program called Generations. And I was speaking to the kids yesterday. Generations.
Ajial. Yes.
And the kids are our friends that we brought from all grades to advise us how to go for this in the future, saying to them that space is technology and medicine and all these good things, but when you go to space, your perspective changes completely about this very small, fragile planet. And I'm not just talking environment, I'm talking people, I'm talking, and the world is changing today with social media and you see more of the world today. So the hope is the next generations will take the transition to make us all look at each other in a different way. Let me go back to 69, and now we're talking about 85 to finish the story.
Which is
16
year, yes.
Yeah, 69 is when I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. Now, by that time, in '84, I was already a full-fledged pilot, flying jets, flying small planes, big planes. The Gulfstream 3, I think at that time I had the type rating, the Learjet, and all that stuff. Ken has been really a very important part. I've been going to flight safety schools, and became an aviator, not just a pilot. This is the difference now, an aviator. Aviators brag a lot more, of course, but they enjoy it a lot more. So, 85, King Fahd sends his plane, or a government plane. Very nice 707. And I wish the pilot that flew us was here because he's still alive and well, alhamdulillah. We fly to Basel from Houston after we finished the mission, a couple of weeks, briefings or whatever, or a month. The whole science team we had, and my backup, Abdel Masel Bassam, don't know if he's invited or not, he should have been. And then we land in Taif, in the western part, in the summer. The government used to summer there. This is an amazing story. This is 1985, 16 years later. I get a call in the plane from King Fahd, who used to call once a day or twice a day to check on us and this. And lots of stories are told in the book. And he says, I want you guys to come out of the airplane with your spacesuits. At that point, I didn't even know King Fahd was going to be in the airport. Big reception. Amazing. So here is a 29-year-old pilot telling the king of Saudi Arabia, sir, maybe we should be wearing our Saudi clothes, to look better. He said, no, I think the space clothes, but do whatever you have to, he said. 30 seconds later, the phone rings on the plane, and it's my father saying, the king orders you to wear your spacesuit. This was the first time the king ordered me to do anything. So he was right, because people were expecting us to come out in a blue color. Yes. When we landed, my boss, because when I flew in the space mission, my boss was the Minister of Information and Media, Ali Sha'ar. He just passed away 3 months ago. Allah yarhamu. Great guy. He comes up on the airplane. I look from the window. Of course, when we were flying in, I came back to the Air Force. I see these F-15, 5 or 6 F-15s. They were just coming into Saudi Arabia, escorting us in the Saudi airspace. And I have pictures in the book that are just, this to me was a very touching moment because I wanted to be in the F-15, not the 707.
So now they were saluting you. They were following you.
And the thing is, they were saluting us. We landed. My boss comes up, big guy, Ali Shar, great guy. He was military, ex-military also. Came and gave me a big hug, practically broke my ribs. He said, the king is here, all the princes, all the ministers. My mother was there also on the other side with a lot of big reception at the airport. And he was telling me that you're going to be going in this open roof car going around Taif, which we did. You know, this is astronauts and people who fly into space have an aura of some sort, inspiration. So I think the biggest thing about this mission is the inspiration. But look at this moment now. He pulls a piece of paper, which I'm still trying to find. He pulls a piece of paper, and he said, "This is a telegram." This is 1985, 16 years later. He pulls a telegram. He said, "The king had just, without me knowing about it, had just appointed you a captain in the Saudi Air Force."
That's an amazing.
That is an amazing moment, and I froze. So, and captain in Arabic, ra'id. Ra'id means, in astronaut we say, Ra'id al-Fada mean astronaut, when you combine two words. So they chose the word Ra'id, and it was actually my level, in the sense of, my level in the government, and that was and I just froze. So I started my conversion program in the military, and I was in the Gulf War, flew F-15s, flew Hawks. One of the guys that I trained with, Awad, where are you? Awad was my trainer on the Hawk. And Mohammed Al-Aish was, before the space mission, the Minister of Defense, Prince Sultan, was kind of biased to the Air Force guys who were submitting their names for the space mission. So he said, all the tests I did, medical tests in the King Faisal special hospitals for 3-4 days, people would see us coming in, don't know what's going on, He said, no, take him, because I was the only civilian, take him to Dahran, the Air Force, and give him the business. So they put me in an F-15 with now the assistant of the minister, who's assistant of the defense minister, your brother, Mohammed Al-Aish, and he put me in an F-15. We have some picture. I don't know what happened to the pictures. And they put me in an F-15 doing air combat maneuvers, ACMs, for 3 days, pulling 9Gs, doing everything that could really, really break you. And 3 days of medical checks until they figured that, it's going to take a lot more to break me. And that's basically how I became an Air Force pilot. And I spent until the mid-90s being an Air Force officer fully. And of course, the Gulf War came, and I served in the Gulf War and so on. So this is how these cycles in life happen.
Yes.
So to me, I would not be the same person today not having been an aviator. I fly everything today. My plane, the plane I fly is a Gulfstream 550 as a captain, ATP, airline transport pilot with first-class medical certificate. But I fly this one, the Learjet. I fly small planes. And I got back in love with small planes when I went to Oshkosh. This show is our first attempt of the Oshkosh of Saudi Arabia. Then I started meeting great people, really. People sitting here, Rod and Joe and Paul. Where is Paul? Paul Claus. This guy, you see, lives in Alaska, and I went to him in '86. Ken and I flew a Learjet 50 feet off the ground all over Alaska.
Not risky at all.
And I'm not going to talk about that one. I don't want to lose my license. But we spent time in Alaska flying everything. And I went this year, and we spent 4 days landing on glaciers and ice. I fly in Saudi, land in the deserts, land everywhere. And it's really been a fantastic experience, restoring airplanes, living the aviation world. I would not be the same person if I had not had that window in life to aviation.
And I truly believe that. I mean, just hearing about this, I feel like we've been through the same journey. And just a quick note, I mean, Your Royal Highness, you mentioned that perspective of the blue dot, right? The small planet changes you psychologically, changes you mentally, changes you even spiritually, I believe. And There was a recent documentary that came out, and it was called One Strange Rock. They bought 9 astronauts, and they wanted to study what changes in the mind of an astronaut once he sees that small dot. We would love to hear more about the spiritual, mental, and psychological effects after when you went to space and you realized how small of a planet this is.
Well, first of all, the mental issue, when you talk about pilots, you can get a lot of jokes about their mental
Absolutely.
including my daughters. I hear from them every day. You know, my house is also dominated by great women, like Abdul Hadi said. But yes, it does changes your perspective. Not just seeing the blue dot. I can tell you, when I'm flying either in the Gulf Stream, crossing the ocean at night, I have my iPad, which has the stargazer thing, and I put it out on the window and I check which stars and what. Or when I'm flying low level, even over Saudi Arabia, my friend Long, where is Long? We were flying over the end of the world, escarpments here, and it's just an inspiration. You cannot believe the moments. Sometimes I believe I learned how to fly so I can sit in the cockpit. You know, so I can sit in the cockpit and I see the view. You know, when we did the trip around Saudi Arabia with this, one of the gliders, that's mine.
Arabian Wings, right?
Arabian Winds.
Yeah, beautiful.
You can find it on YouTube, actually. Arabian Winds, W-I-N-D-S.
Yes.
And we have one of the great guys that taught us how to do this. And where is John Bailey to stand up, please?
John Bailey.
Here is John Bailey. John Bailey is a great aviator in all sense of the word. I'll get my check later, John, okay?
The documentary was amazing.
John is really one of the more... See, what I learned also is, and I'll go back to the dot, is these people, there's great people that I flew with and I fly with, no matter what you see in the facade and the joking and so on, we get into the airplanes and we become aviators. You know, I learned how to build organizations. The Tourism Commission and Tourism and Heritage Commission today is considered tourism and heritage the biggest sector, growth sector in Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
everybody's singing about it today. Yes. When we're saying to people that's what's going to happen, and we were working hard with all the obstacles ahead of us, people were not thinking that this is going to be anything meaningful. Today, Saudi Arabia is going to be a big tourism and heritage economy.
And Your Royal Highness, you had a large role in that.
Not
in
just
that
myself,
industry.
really. As a pilot and aviators, we work together.
Yes.
Like Abdul Hadi said, and I liked what he said today, my friend Abdul Hadi, is that we work as teams, men and women.
Yes.
So John has been our guide on this. We had a big team. Captain Zakaria, where is Captain Zach? Here. There's Zach. He was flying the chase plane, the Twin Otter. Jack is a good friend. We flew together so much. And Prince Bender bin Khalid Al Faisal, the third pilot, he's coming tomorrow. And
we have a
presentation.
panel tomorrow, inshallah,
we'll do
yes.
the presentation. And I have also a friend, two glider pilots. One is a world-class glider pilot, Klaus Ullmann. Where is Klaus? Klaus, are you here?
MashaAllah,
Klaus flies at 50,000 feet in a glider.
I just have to say, I saw you breaking the world record and you flying a glider on top of Everest. And I have to tell you, that is amazing. And we're honored to have you here.
Klaus and I in the Alps, we had an interesting landing to say. I'll show you the pictures later. With a glider, 2 pieces. Yes. But Klaus, I learned a lot from him. And I learned from Monsieur Doucet. Where is he? Can you stand up? René, s'il vous plaît. René Doucet, you know, my French is fine, but, you know, I manage, and he doesn't speak English. So when we glide for 7 hours, somehow we communicate.
How?
But merci beaucoup. René, come on, pilot in the Alps. I think you go check him out. Yes. When you go to Charles Deleu. There's one guy I want to introduce you to who sold me my very first airplane. It's a crooked operation in Seattle, you know. But Brad, would you stand up, please?
Who? The first airplane, mashallah.
Brad,
the plane?
Cessna 414, and we just found it. And it's actually more expensive than when I bought it.
Oh, wow.
And somebody put up the guarantee, and I had to borrow it with the bank. I still work with Brad on several airplanes and different things, you know. So we're still, in spite of being a crooked operation, we're still friends. Brad is a great guy, really. Decent and honest and to the hilt, you know. So Ken just located the 414, so one day maybe we'll see if we can get it. The Blue Dot and the space mission, we were all eager. You know, the launch is really awesome. And we spend about 2 hours waiting in the space shuttle. And in the space shuttle, when they take you, they do a test launch, how to exit and how to egress. I knew none of that stuff is going to work. I knew we were going to go, you know. But when we went to the first time, we all had a bunch of coffee and said, so when you sit in the space shuttle like that, the actual space shuttle, before the launch.
We have the video right here, yes.
That's it, yeah.
So
when you sit, this chair will be back like this, and you're sitting, and you're basically all the fluids come to your stomach, and you need to go and relieve yourself. We didn't know that the first time, so it was a very tough experience. The second time, I was fasting because of Ramadan, the last day of Ramadan. So I fasted the whole month of Ramadan, and now you see kids talking about exams in Ramadan. That's going to be difficult this year. When Ramadan came in Houston, sunset was like 10 o'clock in the evening or something. We told NASA, I said, I'm going to fast. Anybody volunteering? My backup, I told him to volunteer. He was ordered to volunteer at the mess. He's a great guy.
Yes,
so a bunch of us fasted. And NASA said, okay, you can fast for 3 days. And we're going to check you out, your health. But we're going to give you also 9 o'clock to show up to work. We said, no, we want to show up to work exactly at 7 like every day.
We don't want any special.
We're not going to break our program. We'll exercise. So we'll go through the whole day fasting. We were much sharper.
And you lost a lot of weight.
And we lost weight.
Yes.
But we ate one meal because we slept. As soon as we ate the meal, you're supposed to eat a meal late night. Right on the sofa, we're doing books and reports and so on. Ken used to come and visit, and I go flying around. Fasting was good for us. And when we did the test with NASA, the medical center, and when the medical center, when the first time we went, to do checkups, the three of us, there were 3 candidates. We came, Riyadh, London, Houston. They checked into the hotel, and we were really just tired. There was a great lady named Lynn Collins, in charge of the astronauts. She was ready. And you know, in the United States, if they say the war is World War III, they say, who's going to bring the coffee? Coffee is very important.
Yes.
So they took us in a room with cookies and coffees at 1 o'clock in the morning.
This was prior to?
This is prior to everything, before nobody knew anything. We were supposed to do checkups and do interviews and then go back to Saudi. 24 hours. And when we went to the meeting room, we were really just yawning, tired. So they make us sit for an hour for briefings, and they said, we'll see you at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then I knew why. They wanted to see how we behave medically and mentally and so on, with a little sleep, with lots of flying, and those airplanes before, the cabin altitude is like 8,000 or 9,000. Next day we went to the medical center. We did a lot. We were just walking around with shorts, and there were parts of my body I didn't even know existed until those medical checks. I sat down with the mental evaluation, the psychology thing. And in the States, they have this habit. You sit with somebody and they put their feet in your face in the office. In Saudi, that's a no-no.
In Saudi,
so I put my feet up. And the guy was eating a Mars bar. And by that time, we only allowed to have water, no breakfast, just water, because of blood tests and so on. So he took me for an hour, a mental evaluation. I talked as much as he wanted. When we finished, he turned on all the lights because there's a small light. And I said, are we done? He said, yes, we're done. I said, would you mind if I ask you a question? He said, and it doesn't go on the report. He said, yeah, sure. First of all, I said, give me a Mars bar because I'm really starving. Second, I said, what are you looking for? You're looking for people who are not crazy, more or less. He said, yeah, we're looking for people who can assimilate with the crew, who are not going to panic or behave, when you have emergencies, and this and this and that, not going to create problems on the space shuttle, that sort of thing. So I said, you think somebody is going to take off in a spaceship that's made by 15,000 countries with 2 million pieces, with 2 engines, each is 500,000 pounds of thrust, compared to the 747, 50,000 pounds of thrust. And it's just small, like a DC-9, with 2 rocket boosters, each with 1 million pounds of thrust. Do you think somebody would do that? It's not crazy?
That's a very rational question.
He said he loved that story. So he said, you're probably looking for some people who are a little bit, But, the launch is amazing, of course. I actually had a nap while we're waiting for the launch, maybe 15 minutes, just to relax after we did all the things we needed to do, calmed myself and relaxed. We were eager. I was asked by someone once, said, were you afraid? And I said, people are not afraid, are actually crazy.
Yes.
In Saudi, we think people who are afraid and they go forward, like soldiers, like my grandfather and the people that unified this country with him, when they one time went into a fort in Al-Hassa, but the Turks were there. He started climbing the rope, and one guy pulled him down. His son is with my father now, or his grandson. And he said, if you die, this is all over. Let us go first and open the gate for you, and you come in. Because my grandfather was in the forefront of all the wars, all the unification wars. He wasn't sitting behind, iPad and telling people what to do.
Room. No, he was out there.
Like 170 hits with swords, and one time his stomach opened, and that story, when his stomach opened, hit by a sword, they went back to camp, and the news was that he was bleeding and he was dying. So here's what he did, just an off the case. You know, they used to marry a lot. This is part of unifying the tribes and bringing. So he actually, in Al-Hassa, asked for the hand of a girl in Al-Hassa, the tribal chief. And the news was he was getting married tonight. Because he wasn't. The doctor who did his thing is somebody I met who only passed away a few years ago, Dr. Midhat. And he said, when we came to him with anesthesia to sew him up, he said, don't do that. Go ahead and put my stuff inside, sew me up. And he had a thing that he grabbed. Tough guys. So the news was, and they made a big celebration, and the dancing that Abdulaziz, he wasn't king those days, was getting married. But the story he told, that when the girl came in and they would come covered and so on, he sat with her, he said, excuse me, but I am like your brother today. He was totally, and the news was he's getting married, and that whole thing went away, but so we believe that when, I really wasn't afraid, maybe that was stupid or I was young. I was actually afraid not to fly,
That
and
was
then
your real fear.
That really biggest fear. Anyway, the space shuttle, sorry?
It was in your blood, from your grandfather.
Well, all of us, genetically speaking, Saudis are why they're excelling today in technology, in medicine, in architecture, of course in aviation, and all these fields, men and women, because this is a genetic conditioning. The arts you see today, fantastic things happening throughout this history of this country, 300 years.
Definitely.
The engines would start, they start gimbling, checking, and then the rocket boosters would start really shaking, and then, they blow out the bolts. There are bolts holding the space shuttle down. You can see them being blown away. And then when you take off, the space shuttle has to turn because the launching pad was for the moon missions, so more northerly. We were going at 38.5 or something inclination to the east. So it goes like this, turns. But really the fun starts when the space shuttle starts. So we're hanging with our heads down. There is more than 3 Gs. I used to fly 7 Gs or even more, or with Art Scholl, one of the greatest, the guy who did Top Gun aerobatics, and died while doing it. He crashed while doing it, and the footage is that spin. It was actually a true spin. So we used to do 9 Gs, but this is 3 Gs sustained.
Yes.
So your head is down, all the shaking, and then the acceleration.
Oh my God.
Then you have the Gs on your stomach, and literally you think you're going to die because of the breathing. So we're trying to get a breath, in. So it goes on for a minute plus.
They teach you how to breathe exactly at that moment,
It's
right?
because of the fighter aircraft. Because we flew fighters also at NASA to train for this.
Can you repeat the video again of the takeoff?
Anyways, the space shuttle spends about 9 minutes or so to go into orbit, lower orbit, and then we still have to do the little engines and push it. The faster you go, the higher. We were about 1.2 million feet up in the air. So the guys who brag about the Gulf Stream going 51,000 feet, I've got news for them.
It's no longer a threshold.
But the moment you asked about, when we're like this, and then we finally lose the rocket boosters, and the engines are still pushing, then it's an amazing moment. Very quiet. Acceleration has already stabilized, and we're in space, and we're really going fast to anchor at the orbit, and of course go east. We used to see 16 sunsets and sunrises every single day.
Oh my God.
So if you like sunsets, there you go.
Oh my God, that's amazing. 16.
16. I don't know, Joe, my friend Joe, can you stand up for a minute, please? My
Joe
friend
Clark,
Joe Clark,
everyone.
great guy, great aviator.
A pioneer in the aviation
I go to
industry.
Joe to visit him in his ranch every year, and beautiful place in states in the United States. And one time I was sleeping at 6 o'clock in the morning. I look out of my window in his main ranch, and I see a helicopter, right next to my window. He goes to me, "Let's go."
That's your alarm
That's the best
clock?
alarm clock I had in my life. So Joe and I and friends, we'd fly all his planes, more or less, 20 or 30, from one plane to another. You really have to like airplanes to go to that on that trip. And Rod, of course, has twice as many airplanes, and he was a racer. Rod, can you stand up, please, for a second? Rod is a Reno air racer. He restores airplanes, and these are great people who have their own businesses, have families, and enjoy life. So basically, the moment comes. The space shuttle has upper deck and lower deck. Lower deck is very small. It's a lot smaller than this place, a lot, but half the size.
Shuttle.
Yeah, and we're 7 people. So Patrick Baudry, the Frenchman, and myself and John Fabian were down, and then we had Shannon Lucet and late Steve Nagel, great guy who passed away with skin cancer. And of course, the 2 pilots, Jay O'Crayton and Dan Brandstein.
It was a total of 7 astronauts,
Seven,
right?
7
Yes.
limited space. But we can transition. You don't want to talk about the bathroom facilities. You really don't want to touch that one because it's another story. You would not be able to live 7 days with 7 people in such very confined space unless you had 0G. So some of us used to work in the ceiling like mosquitoes, and some of us will. Anyway, the moment came when the commander, Don Branstad, said, "Go ahead and take off your helmets. These are pressure helmets. You need them because of the sound and the noise of the takeoff, the launch." So we took off the helmets and then let them go. And then you see a little bit of nails and screws, all the shaking just floating. So they teach you how to float away from your seat, to unbuckle. If you do this with the wall, you fly very quickly. So we kind of got some training in what they call the vomit gommet, the 747, the 707, which does parabolas and things. And there are pictures of that. I know these guys come up with the pictures. Then he says, "Come up." It's very important that people come up and orient themselves. The space shuttle flies, I can't say upside down, because in space there is no upside down. But we're flying like this. So Earth is always, we can see Earth. And we can also, on the other side, charge the solar panels. The space shuttle has 44, I think, small rockets that will orient it in space and speed it up and push it down. And also for return to Earth, those are very important. But they're not operating because in space you're really going at 18,000 miles an hour. I started with Joe, and his beautiful airplane is back there. He just did a record from Florida to Riyadh in 13 hours and 46 minutes. I think his crew, where the crew? Please, the crew stand up. The crew who made this happen with Joe.
And we have Captain Joe Clark to speak
There's
after
one.
this. Yes.
Tom, where is the other ones? Hi, Travis. Who is the third one here? Where is? Yourself? Who is missing? Who is? Where is Mark? Mark is flying? Grab my Lear. It's good because I can grab your airplane. It's even better. But they just did the trip for the show. So I want to announce that today. This is a world record.
They broke a world record, yes.
Broke a world record. Maximum altitude, I think 48,000. They ended up incremental. It's a lot of planning for this. And they just flew. And they loved the Saudi air traffic control.
Really?
I am the proudest person
Mashallah,
of Saudi ATC. And I did a message one time. I think it's on our website now. Those men and women, my first experience with a Saudi women ATC going to Al-Ula the other day, absolutely right on the money. And I recorded her. I recorded her for my daughters. I'm the last guy to ask about these issues because my experience with my sister and my 2 daughters and my nieces, which I oversee, are the top universities in the world, Cambridge, Oxford, and they're engineers, they're psychologists, and then now they're doing masters and PhDs, and of course our sons too. So that's not strange to me. We were at the Disabled Children Association, the first organization public organization, non-profit, to let women become board members, go into the elections and become board members. And they're the best people that we have in our organization. This was, by the way, this was 10 years ago, before it became fashionable.
It was far ahead.
At the Tourism Commission, and now at the Space Commission, some of the ladies are here. You need to talk to them and see, like Abdelhadi said, there is no gender issue here. You need to talk to them and see.
Yes.
Hala is one of them, and these smart, reliable women who also raise families.
Yes, and that's the hardest job in the world.
My children have a mother who is a PhD. She's
MashaAllah,
she's an associate professor at the university, excellent in her work, and does all these things, and yet still oversee her two daughters and Salman and so on.
And that's what's so fascinating is they always say the hardest job is running a company. No. The hardest job is being a CEO of a family.
My father and my mother used to call us, and still do, every day. And they were busy. I'm very busy, man, with a lot of things, a lot of organizations. Not a single day that I don't talk to my children, my nieces, my sister, and my grandchildren. I have 2 grandchildren. The daughter is 4 years old, Aya, and I think she thinks she can run the world by now, ready to go, and her brother. So it's really fantastic to be in Saudi and to be relaxed in the way we build this country and continue to build. This country has always been in a state of flux.
Absolutely. And
you go up in the upstairs, well, you float up. And Dan Brandstein, a great guy, and of course J.O. looks at me and he says, Sultan, look. So I put my face to the small upper windows, and of course the earth is down there. And it is a view that you can never forget.
Ya Allah.
It's a view that shows you a very small, I know this has been said a lot, but let me say it a different way. You see a small planet, all the colors in the world,
Yes.
and then you see this darkness. It's a light shift that makes it darkness, almost dark blue, and it hits you.
Ya
I can see the stars and everything, but it hits you. We're here alone.
Ya Allah.
So that's why the rhetoric I hear from politicians and so on, until today. It's like almost like today, people talk like we don't have internet and Netflix and Apple TV, and we see documentaries about wars and how much blood has been spilled throughout history. You think we became better. You think we became much more educated. A little girl today or a little boy can actually go to the net and see disasters and can see things that can happen to people. This is not, I'm not being a green or being a liberal or being this. I'm actually, politically speaking, right in the middle of all kinds of things. But it is really a very small place. So we had a press conference one time in space. At that time, there was an explosion of an airplane, TWA, in Beirut. And a New York Times reporter asked, while we were in space, he said, sir, I don't know if he said sir, but he said my name maybe. He said, looking at terrorism in the Middle East, he wanted to focus that, and this and that. What do you think? I said, well, terrorism is all everywhere today. And if I had a thing to say, I would make it a required thing for every politician and leader to come into space, spend a day, look at this view before they go back to Earth. Of course, I had a few politicians in mind, And then mentally, I was saying to come back to Earth, but mentally saying some of those guys, just
they should go up there.
Stay
Yes.
there. Release them to space. we would be better. Would be better today if we did that too. All the crazy stuff that happens today, all the arrogance and the grandizing and so on. We need people that can build this world and can put people together, and it's going to happen with the generations that we're looking at today, who are connecting, who are traveling, seeing each other, making life. I'm very advanced in the sense of IT and all that. My tourism organization was #1 in Saudi for years. I fix my own stuff, and hardware and software and all that. I fly very complex airplanes. I stay ahead of the game because I don't want to be looked down by my own kids. But the point is, you see that view and you keep moving, because those days when we flew, we had fires in Africa, droughts, about 50 fires. So Africa was engulfed. Then I saw how people asked me, how did you pray? So of course I was fasting that first day.
And
John Fabian came to me.
And you bought the first date to
Well,
space,
we brought
right?
Medina dates.
Yes.
It was favored, and NASA and King Fahd kept sending them, so people loved them and got us into places. It was a good bribe, the Medina dates, But I was looking at my country, flying over it, and every 90 minutes, I don't mean to deflate the record flight for Joe, from Florida to Riyadh in 13 hours, 46 minutes, but the space shuttle goes around the whole world, once every 90 minutes.
Oh my God, wow.
So Joe's trip would have been 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, Captain Joe, I'm sorry. It's no longer a world record.
That's why, Joe, if you remember the 650, the Gulfstream 650, with Hamish, I think the gentleman who flew it, and he asked me, he said, I'm taking 2 astronauts, you want to come on the trip and break a world record? I said, I already have a world record.
In the entire world.
So to see the world changing, you see storms forming, these amazing colors. You see deserts, and you see forests, and you see ocean. Your mind. So I was asked a question in the press conference, and here's what I said without thinking, truly, because it's very inspirational what you see. I said, what do you think of the view when you saw Earth from space? So it really hit me. I said, well, first day or so, we were pointing to our countries. This is my country. By the third or fourth day, literally, we were pointing to our continents. Do you know Saudi Arabia is in Asia? That's why where is Long? Long is here? Is Long here? Long is a great guy I fly with. There's a lot of fun to fly with.
He's an amazing photographer as well.
He's amazing. Go to his website. Somebody asked him, what's your website yesterday? He said, Hot Asian, which is not. His website is Long, what?
I believe he also has a Facebook page under
Anyway,
his
get his
name.
website and see the pictures of Saudi Arabia.
Yes, and they look amazing.
I said, by the third or fourth day, we were pointing to our continents. Really, I said, but by the fifth day, and this all came very quickly, we were looking at one world, one planet. I really didn't.
Goosebumps.
And to prove my point, when we came back to Saudi and after all the celebrations and things for the team, I think Saudis were celebrating themselves. We were in a period where building airports, infrastructure in the 80s, pumping money when the oil prices went up, and so on. And Saudi Arabia was building like crazy. So people were busy, they forgot there was an education thing that was going on. When I was in the States, there were 26,000 Saudis in universities. We started early. Life didn't start yesterday. So this flux situation of Saudi Arabia building over its history has always been the case. So if we stop, we're not us anymore.
That's very true.
See. So I just kind of, after the celebrations and everything, as King Fahd asked me to, I see him, of course, all the time. So he said to me, I want you to go around all the countries that are represented in Arabsat. Arabsat is the satellite organization. By coincidence, they just finished a new building in the diplomatic quarter, and we took it over, which is amazing. So it was like built for the Space Commission.
And perfect timing.
And you should visit. I want our guests to visit the Space Commission. This like a spaceship kind of building. So I took with me in space a bunch of things from my grandmother, from my father, my mother, and so on, a lot of things. And then we made those astrolabes. Arabs have invented this space stuff and al-falak, يعني اللي هو cosmology and all that. And then we took these astrolabes. These are, in aviators, we used to call them confusers. Guys who go to, and women who fly, they don't have to do what we did with these slides, We call them confusers. Now they have these iPads and computers and, all the stuff there with applications. So he said, I want you to go to the Arab countries and lecture and speak and give them all their present that came from space. So I loved it because I get to fly a lot in the Gulfstream 3. So I flew a lot. But the amazing thing is that every place I went, people had the same questions. What did you feel when you went to space? How does it, until today. So I still speak in schools. I enjoy speaking in small schools. I take my helmet. And one of the things I do, kids wear it, pick them up. I pick them up if they want to, and I turn them around, and it's really very inspirational.
And that's how a space shuttle feels like.
Inshallah.
And you are absolutely true. I mean, there is a different aura when you, I can see it and I can feel it just sitting next to you. There is a different aura from someone. And even though it's been 7 days, but I'm sure it's an everlasting effect that stays within you.
I started to say, when I started the first trip, I went to the States to meet President Reagan, a man I've always admired. I'm not affiliated to anything, but I liked Reagan. He was just somebody who did what it takes. So King Fahd asked me to go meet him, and we got it all set up. And there is a stop in London, just a break in London. So I'm used to being in the space shuttle, going around the world once every 90 minutes. But guess what I forgot when I went to London? My passport. Because I figured, I don't know, mentally I'm saying, there are no more borders.
I'm a global citizen.
And those borders, by the way, are fake.
Yes.
They're all in geography books and outline and so on. You go to the States, you see the Panhandle, and you see the Tri-States, and you see Colorado and New Mexico, and, but really, they don't exist, to me at least, until today. So there's a guy here that is a joy to fly with. Captain Tahir, could you stand up for a minute? Captain Tahir Alam, who I didn't recognize yesterday. When I saw him, I absolutely didn't recognize him. I love the mustache.
Is it the mustache?
It's all new to me. But Captain Tahir and I borrowed an airplane. And when we landed in Geneva, he said, his boss said, before you leave, take permission if he needs the airplane anymore. I said, really? He said, yes. So it was Mr. Hariri and Mr. Nasser Rashid. Nasser Rashid still, by the way, now asks me for the bills, for the fuel. So we took the airplane for a month and plus. We went all over the world. So Tahir, I haven't seen him for a long time, so we invited him to come over. Yes. Great pilot. And the Bach 111. So this is, what I fly weekly. I still look at the world from the same perspective. The views that you see, the people you meet. Aviators are a special breed. Yes. Regardless of anything. When I go to Oshkosh and 700,000 people, one of my daughters said, how do you control 700,000 pilots? It's well done. In the US, they do things right. Yes. And that's what the culture here at Saudi Aviation Club, if we're going to do it, it's going to be done right.
Absolutely.
So it is the joy to go and talk to people who are grounded, people who enjoy life, who have a different perspective. And of course, you go to space, and we do hope. And I'm going to say today two things. I thank Abdul Hadi, and we're going to hold him to it. That's why I clapped, so people remember it, about the fees. But I think the fees is the thing that's going to take the news. But I know, I can't always speak about these things, a lot of development. And we're working together, but his leadership, a lot of development in the general aviation stuff. And I told Abdul Hadi today, some of these guys sitting here, including Ken, would be a really great asset to maybe organize a meeting while we're here, if you don't mind. Bring your committee and people. I will meet with them in my hangar. Ken will be here, and some of the guys who fly general aviation will be here. And let's do that. Let's do a flush-out meeting. I said this is a growing thing in Saudi. Saudi is the most beautiful place, one of the most beautiful places in the world to fly. And will make flying a lot easier. One time, I remember Zach, I had a gentleman from the desert who lost 3 camels or 4 camels. Normally in Saudi, if somebody tells you that, you say, Abshir bil-awad. I'll replace them for you, just out of gesture. Well, I didn't want to do that because camels are very expensive. So I said to Captain Zakaria, I said, I'm going to send you a gentleman yesterday. Take off. If he tells you to go north, go south. He's a Bedouin guy who thought he knew everything. And he's been looking for his camels every day, and he was sad. This is a true story. Zach is here. Well, he left. Remember the story with Ben Mijfil. So I had a caravan, Cessna caravan. So he goes, he takes off, and the guy tells him, let's go north. That's where he thought his camels are because of the wind. The Bedouins will tell you these things. Wind and this. I lived all my life in the desert. I have camels, my own camels, the white camels. And I'm telling people, whoever wants to stay longer, we're going to go see the white camels in the desert and enjoy the desert for a day. And we're going to set this up. And kiss the camels on the nose. You come to my farm, Saudi. Ken did it. Joe did it, and his picture is all over the net. I
saw the picture, yes. And we're going to see it again.
I think we should have it here.
Yes, and we're going to have it again.
And we should put it. But, Rod hasn't done it. A lot of guys haven't done it. Travis did it, I remember, and did a long one, too. So he goes south or east. The guy tells him to go west, and Zach goes east. And the guy got angry. He said, why do you go east? He said, Prince Sultan. Guess what?
He told me
it took 10 minutes to fly east, the opposite the direction where he thought his camels were. And here are the camels walking. So I saved, I spent $500 on fuel. as opposed to 500,000 riyals on replacement. So there's a role for the airplane here because it's a vast country. And we do these fly-ins now. And you should see the spirit of the Saudi pilot and the people, the pioneers, you know. So this is a pioneer. This show is so critical.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm very proud of people that have transitioned to aviation. One of them, Mishal. Where Mishal? Is he here or gone? Where Mishal? Mishal Sudairi is a relative and a cousin. Mishal is an engineer from one of the top universities in Saudi and Dhahran. And he has been an avid, he actually established the Saudi Auto Club. What you see today, the racing and all the safaris and all that across the deserts and stuff, he is the man behind that whole thing. And when we did the desert things, you know, car racing and so on those days.
On a motorcycle.
Mishal now, I asked him to do a book about his transition. Because there was a Saudi general who's a pilot, had an amazing book. It's like the 10th printing now. He called it From Bicycle to Airplane. Mishal came up with a great title, From Wheels to Wings.
Allah, beautiful.
And if you want to see an aviator that is dove is the word, head first to transition. I mean, all I hear from Mishal now is airplanes. He spends hours, like I do, on the iPad looking at airplanes. So you have a creation of so many aviators. And of course, we have the women aviators who went to the school here, and now we're creating the academy with the Aramco and Saudi and others. And I want the minister here to give us the permission to start work, to build the academy here. Because the money is there. It's a big agreement with the University of North Dakota.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a fantastic thing.
I feel like we need 5 hours, right? I don't want this to finish.
You don't want me to talk for 5 hours.
Wallah, we do. But unfortunately, we have to bring this session to a close because, mashallah, Prince Sultan, we are filled with inspiration. We are filled with, honestly, the feeling of wanting to just go on a plane and fly right now and even go to space.
Well, and I want to just close by really thanking the Entertainment Commission, the Sports Commission, the Tourism Commission, like I said, the military, the Air Force, my guys, you know, who brought the Typhoon and brought all kinds of airplanes. I don't know if they're going to give me a ride on the Typhoon or not.
Can I come too?
I've been promised one. And all the Saudi pilots and the aviation club members who brought a lot of airplanes. We have today, just if you allow me to brief quickly, the governor of Riyadh, very avid, Prince Faisal, who took my father's job after 2 other people after that, but who is a very busy man, but he always comes here. The king himself, when he was governor of Riyadh, came to the Saudi Aviation Club when we launched, so he's still a big supporter.
We have the picture right over here.
We have pictures here. Still a big supporter. And then today the governor is going to come in, we're going to see the show, and inshallah we will have lunch, a big lunch for the guests, and then we see the air show. And enjoy it. And of course, tomorrow we have more hangar talks.
Yes.
And I want us to really make sure people also know about that because these are great things and great stories. I would suggest that everyone, from the guests who are pilots and their friends and spouses and children, and Abdul Hadi and others, why don't we all come here for a photo op with the background? Absolutely. I think that wasn't planned. فهلا والجماعة get the drone in. If you don't mind.
Yes. You want to do it now?
Yeah, I think we should do it now, if you like. Because we have time. We were supposed to have the Emirati astronaut come.
Yes. And we have Captain Joe Clark as well.
Of course.
Yes. And we want to hear about the world record as well.
Joe is going to speak today?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I better get out of the room.
2 pilots.
Joe, remember this is Saudi Arabia. It's not Oshkosh. Can we have like a little string? When Joe starts going out of the outer line, I can just pull the string.
Of course, we'll manage that.
Joe is a great guy. Great aviator.
He's incredible and mashallah, a pioneer in the aviation
industry.
He's
now over, I think, about 70 or something, but going on 15.
70,000.
And going on 15.
Mashallah, tabarak.
That's how
mashallah. He just showed me a picture of you and him and the camel, and he was introducing me to the picture. He was like, "This is my girlfriend."
Well, Paul, Donna's wife, and his daughter are all aviators. The whole family. His mom is 90. Your mother is now 90. Sorry? Oh, that's a big mistake. 86. And she still runs.
MashaAllah, tabarak.
Marathons, living in Alaska. So
may God bless you. Ya Rab. All right.
Thank you very much.
We
Appreciate
can
it.
definitely do a picture.
Yalla, Sharaf.
If you would allow us.
Can we get everybody now?
Yes, we can do it now, but
And then Joe speak?
yes, I would much prefer if we have
Okay.
Captain Joe, and if we can then do the
Joe,
picture.
come
Yes,
up.
but thank you so much,
Yes,
Your Royal Highness. This was such an inspiration, and thank you a million times over. Captain Joe Clark, hello. Wh-
I'll take a picture with you, with this, with you here.
Yes, of course.
صور صور بسرعة. أحمد.
Thank you so much.
I will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll follow your lead.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness. It was such an inspiration, and we have more inspiration for you with numerous industries with Captain Joe. Just to give you a brief intro, Captain Joe Clark is a businessman, an entrepreneur, a pioneer, an inventor, and an aviator, of course, most importantly, and a pilot.
First is pilot.
Yes, but save the best for last, right? We have to do that. Captain Joe, please have a seat, and we want to hear all about the revolution you've done to the aviation industry as a whole. If I can ask everyone to please be seated, just so we can start. And prior, I like that picture over there.
Looks like I need a shave.
Similar to, it shows a true aviator, right? Captain Joe, mashallah, you have created a disruption within the aviation industry. I just want to give like a brief intro about Aviation Partners, if you would allow me, and then I want to ask you so many questions about it as well. So, just so you know, everyone, Captain Joe Clark is the founder of Aviation Partners, Inc. Aviation Partners, Inc. is focused on, of course, Captain Joe will talk more about it, but they created a winglet that enhanced performance in all jets. The accomplishments of Aviation Partners, up until today, they've saved more than 10 billion gallons of jet fuel for Learjets. 10 billion gallons.
I'm not sure this is the right venue to say that.
There has to be, but Saudi is a separate item. But this is a huge accomplishment, not only to a company, but to the entire industry. And it's amazing to see the inventor behind it. Can you please tell us the story? And if we can also have the presentation up as well. We really want to hear the story of the founding of Aviation Partners and what led you to discover and to even think about executing this invention within the winglet systems as
Okay, I'll be happy to. Is the presentation up?
Yes, if we can have the presentation up. And
Well, I wish I could say it was my idea, but it really wasn't. I had a partner named Dennis Washington, and he called me up one day on the phone. He said, "Could you put winglets on my Gulfstream 2?" And I said, "What do you want to do that for?" And he said, "I want it to look like a new modern airplane." So what I did is I said, okay, I know a lot of fellows in Seattle in the aerospace industry. So what I did was I got these gentlemen together. There's kind of an interesting group here, but just a couple of them. One, Brian Waggle, was part of my kitchen cabinet. Brian was first flight of the 747 and first flight of the 737. There's Dr. Gratzer, and these are different engineers we worked with. So I got this group together, and I said, my partner wants to do this. We want to put G3 winglets on a G2. And we looked around, and we checked it out and everything, and we felt we could do it, but it would be very, very expensive. So I got back to him and said we could do it. It's a lot of money, but one of my engineers, this fellow on the right here next to me, Dr. Gratzer, worked in the wind tunnels at Boeing for 3 or 4 years, and he said, you know, I've got a new winglet design called a blended winglet, and I'd like to test it. So I called my partner and said, I got this great idea. I was all excited. He said, I'm not interested. So I said to him, I said, well, let me show you a picture of it. So I showed him a picture of it. He saw what it looked like, and that was how it all started. We formed a company to do the blended winglets.
that's amazing. Which year Which year did you and Dennis Washington come together to take this invention?
1989.
1989.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And
so this is a copy of the blended winglet here. That's a fiberglass prototype.
this was the first one?
Pardon me?
This was the first.
That's the first one,
winglet?
yeah. And so I went back to Gulfstream and met with Alan Paulson, who was the president, and told him what we wanted to do. And he said, well, that'd be like putting hubcaps on a Cadillac. And I said, well, we think we can make it perform better. So what we did is we built prototypes. And the idea was to fly the airplane without winglets, build a prototype, fit the winglet to the airplane, and test it. And this is what we did here.
Is that you in the picture?
Yeah, that's me and a long time ago. And this is a fiberglass winglet we build in a boat shop where they build fiberglass 8-oared shells.
Oh, wow.
And this is one of the fellows who built one of the first prototype gliders out of all composite. He was a B-29 pilot for Boeing.
That's beautiful to see. Who was the first person that took this prototype and actually flew a plane to test it?
See that?
Who is the first person that took the first prototype and actually put it on a plane to go and test it?
That was us.
That was
with
you.
the blended winglet. There were winglets before. Gulfstream had them and Learjet had them, but they were very square shaped and they were old technology. So this is the airplane we flew it on. That's the Learjet on the side there, flown by a guy named Clay Lacey, who's an amazing aviator, a good friend of Prince Sultan's. And we had periscope cameras in that Learjet, and so we flew all the in-flight to watch it. And this is when we first started testing the winglet on the Gulfstream.
After you proved that the winglet actually enhanced the performance of jets,
Yeah.
what was your next step to take it into an actual business operations and to go to Boeing and to actually take it to the next scale?
That came a little bit later on, but initially here, we flew them on the Gulfstream, and we got a 7.3% reduction in drag, which is an increase in range or fuel efficiency, and that was really quite something because nobody believed we could do it. But that's not really why people liked it. They loved the look.
It was
And for the business jet, it extended the range because the G2 wouldn't fly coast to coast in America reliably in the winter because of the winds. Now it could with the winglets.
aside from the huge reduction in the requirement of getting jet fuel, right?
Right. So this is our first winglet on the actual prototype airplane that we flew. We retrofitted approximately 75% of the Gulfstream fleet, and then we went on, and these are some of the other business jets that have the blended winglet technology, the Falcons.
They look beautiful. They look amazing.
Yeah, they do. The perception is when you put the winglets on the airplane that you get a whole new airplane. But they're very expensive to do, and they cost a lot. It's about $500,000 or more per airplane.
Oh, wow.
So these are some of the Falcon airplanes we've done. These are the different business jets that we've done. We've installed 818 ship sets to date on all the different, just the private jets.
Wow. Only the private jets.
Right. Now then Boeing, you asked about Boeing. Yes. Boeing came to me. It's kind of a funny story. This is Borgie Boskov, who's the vice president of Boeing. Boeing and General Electric formed a joint venture. And it was owned half by Boeing and half by GE, and it was the new business jet. So two fellows bought the new business jet, Mohammed Al Maktoum from Dubai and Bob Manoukian, who was from Brunei. And they both wanted business jets, but they didn't want them to look like an airliner. They wanted them to look like a business jet, so they wanted winglets. So Boeing came to me and said, can you put winglets on these? We know they don't work. We just want them for the looks. So I said, well, if we put them on, they'll work. So that's how it started with Boeing.
And it was the legacy Boeing systems, right?
Say again?
It was the legacy Boeing that you first introduced the winglets into, right?
Right. But they didn't think they worked. These are some of this is the same thing. We did prototypes on the 737. When they told me they wouldn't work, I said, here's what I'll do. I'll build a set of prototypes, and we'll fly them on the airplane. I went to my partner, told him what we wanted to do. He said, I think you're crazy. But we did it, and we proved the performance again.
Not just the looks.
Yeah, and Boeing did not like it. The engineers at Boeing, once we proved that they worked to save about 5% on airline fuel, they did not like it at all.
Oh, wow. That's That's incredible.
So this is the flying on the BBJ. That's the prototype on the left. And this is a Saudi airplane here, I think, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
Yes. This is the team to put all together on the airliners, the 737-700 and the 800. We did the 300, the 500, the 700, the 800, the 900 of just the narrow bodies. And this is the team that did them.
When you first thought, along with Dennis Washington, of creating Aviation Partners, did you consider it would reach where it is today with all of this success?
No, I mean, this was just a product for the Gulfstream, but once it went on the Gulfstream, we saw how it worked. I knew it would work on the airliners. I was the only one, though. We also did a lot of work with Airbus, but that's a whole other story. So this is the biggest airplane we flew the winglets on. You can see the size of them by the fellows under the wing. This is the 747-200 that we put winglets on. We didn't end up doing a program. This was strictly a flight test prototype program.
It's huge.
Yeah, they're big. They're about 16 feet high. This is some of our advanced technology we're looking at. This is called a spiroid, and it's a circular device on the wingtip, and the reason it works so well, it's 11% drag reduction as opposed to a normal winglet 5 to 7, but there's no tip. So if there's no tip, you eliminate the concentrated tip vortex. It's a little complicated, but it looked a little strange, so we haven't really put it into commercial service yet, but it is kind of the future we're looking at.
It does look like the future, just looking at it, along with those ones. When did you expand, or when did you innovate into these ones as opposed to the previous winglets that
it's the same process. It's just an iteration further along. These ones on the Falcon we put are aluminum. The other ones were fiberglass.
It looks very modern, and it looks like the future.
Okay, these are the different airplanes that we've flown winglets on from the inception in 1990 up through, that's 2000, well, it's 2020 now. But these are all the different airplanes.
The split winglet?
This is our newest product that we have. We're on about 1,700 airplanes. It's called a split scimitar winglet. And it's very effective, and it gives another 2.5% more fuel savings on the airplanes.
How about the drag?
Well, less drag, so better fuel savings. And this is another picture of the split scimitar winglet.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah,
How many planes implemented the split winglets so far? How many planes implemented the new split winglets so far?
1,700.
1,700, wow.
Yeah, we'll do about another 2,000 or 3,000, I think.
You say that so casually, Captain Joe.
This is another picture of the split scimitar. It's quite an elegant shape. And we found through our advanced computational fluid dynamics that by shaping the tips like this, the scimitar tips, the little things make a big difference in these drag reduction.
Aside from the amazing look.
Yeah. That's a private jet here. That's a business jet. Okay, so to date we've saved the industry $10 billion. I think as of today on our website we have a continually monitoring meter. 10.3 billion gallons of fuel we've saved the industry. And if you take the number of cars in Seattle, there's about 50,000 cars in Seattle. They cruise about 8,000 miles a year each. So if that would take all those cars, 450,000 cars, and run them for 34 years.
Oh, wow. If you just put it into perspective like that, it's incredible.
Another perspective is Alaska Airlines has about 250 airplanes. It would fly their whole fleet for about 14 years.
Oh, wow. 10.4 billion gallons.
And these are all the airline, well, we're on 137 airlines, just with the technology and the Boeings. Airbus is probably about the same. So far, we've installed 9,394 on the commercial airliners and another 800 on the private, so we're over 10,000 now.
That's an amazing, amazing accomplishment.
These are some of the airlines that have our winglets on them. Nicky Loud of Austrian was an early customer. He was a great guy. He's a friend of Sultan's as well. And we figure that one of the saying we have in our company, the most reliable way to predict the future is to invent it.
And you've proven that. You
Yes.
have invented the
Yeah.
future through
Right.
aviation.
Right. Now we've got to show you some fun things. We've got a couple of videos here, some flight test videos.
I do want to ask you while they upload the videos, where do you see the future of the aviation industry, considering that you were an inventor in it and you've been in it and a pioneer in it since?
Well, I don't really
1980?
consider myself an inventor. I kind of carried the water buckets for some pretty smart guys. But I think aviation, you know, we're all surprised, Sultan and I were talking about it, that we're going so slow. We're not going any faster now than we were in 1969.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because somebody has to develop the hypersonic and supersonic technology so we can go fast. The Concorde was about a Mach 2 airplane, but we should be doing Mach 5, 6, 7. But it's all about the materials because the airplanes will melt if you go too fast.
Yes.
The only thing that keeps the airliners from going faster now is the aluminum will melt.
That's very true.
So if somebody can come up with the right technology, we're on.
How about aviation partners? Where is the future for aviation partners, and what other innovations are you currently working on that you can disclose to us?
Well, we need some more young guys. You know, I'm getting up there, so we need some of the young blood in there. But I think there's always going to be tremendous aviation technology coming up with all the new young aviators and young engineers, the STEM systems in the United States now. They all want to do new things. The latest buzz is electric, but I don't see it yet. But I think everybody else does. So maybe I'm behind the times.
You're the pioneer, so we are behind whatever you say. If we can please upload the video, and up until then, I have another question for you, Captain Joe. What's your favorite plane to fly and why?
My what?
What's your favorite airplane to fly?
The one
and
I'm
why?
flying. Anyone. I don't care whether it's a Super Cub or a
That's
jet.
spoken like a true aviator.
So this is a Falcon 2000, our test airplane, and what our mission from Dassault was, they said, if you can get 5% at 0.8 Mach, we'll put the winglets on in production airplanes. We achieved that, and this is the first flight test airplane. These are fiberglass winglets that we build in the same boat shop.
It looks beautiful.
And the photography here is done by a good friend, Clay Lacey, who I mentioned earlier, with his special equipped Learjet that films these. This is the Falcon flying with the spiroid winglets. They're
It
really
is
quite
gorgeous.
unusual.
It's gorgeous. And it's so modern. I mean, it captivates attention, even for
Right.
non-aviators. Just looking at it, you know something is different.
This is right over by Reno, Nevada, we're flying here. By the way, none of these shots are zoomed. The Learjet's that close when it's flying. Next to the Falcon here.
It's amazing. How do you feel looking at this winglet, knowing that you had a huge role in creating it?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
How does it feel, Captain?
Well, it's nice to see them on all the airplanes. I go to commercial airports now, and I'm shocked because so many airplanes have winglets on them.
So you can say that you fly 24/7, basically,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It looks so beautiful.
It's different. I think the last one we have here is maybe the 50. No, this is our prototype winglet on the Boeing business jet. And by the way, when we did this, we didn't tell Boeing we were doing it because it's my partner's airplane, and they just went ballistic. They could not believe we did this without telling them.
Oh, wow. What did they do afterwards?
Pardon me?
What did they do afterwards?
They've threatened to sue me, and they were my partner. Now, these big companies don't like small companies doing things.
They should have been proud.
Yeah, but it works well, and it's been
And it's beautiful.
It's been very effective. We install about 50 or 75 of these every month now. And this is the long-range BBJ here that are on.
It looks absolutely
I
beautiful.
love watching the airplanes just fly in the air like this, up close. It's a very unusual view that many people don't get to see.
It is. And especially once you know that you were the creator of this.
There's another one. This is the Falcon 50 we did with the winglets on it, behind the Boeing here over the Sierras. It's an elegant airplane.
So close to the mountains as well.
We haven't really done many of these because the Falcon 50 is kind of being phased out, but it's still a wonderful airplane. And some of these airplanes are so cheap now, it's just incredible that you can buy them for the prices you can. This is a prototype as well, you can see.
It's inspirational to watch.
And watching airplanes in flight is a wonderful experience.
Captain Joe, how many hours do you have flying?
I don't really have a lot of hours. I have probably just under 10,000.
That's not a lot of hours?
No, not compared to some of these guys. My mentor in flying, you can see, by the way, the scimitar tips on this airplane. That's a Hawker. My mentor, Clay Lacey, who taught me how to fly the Learjet, has 55,000 hours.
Oh, wow. MashaAllah.
And there's 8,700 hours in a year.
Oh, wow.
Give you an idea.
That's incredible.
So this is some photographs of where we go to have fun flying. Sultan and I have flown here. This is my ranch in Idaho. Let me see. I think we got some slides there mixed up or something. Okay, we're back now, yeah. So this is the runway in Idaho where we fly.
This is in your ranch, right?
I guess I can move these pictures myself. There we go. And this is the area in Idaho where we do a lot of flying. Now there's a video here. You got the sound?
Can we have the volume?
You got to have the volume.
Can you repeat it? Because the volume is something else. It's as if everyone here just drank coffee with the volume.
Okay. How do I make this one?
They're going to repeat it again. There we go.
There we go. This is a Learjet 24 business jet. Flies very nicely. I don't know, Sultan and I might be in that airplane.
Oh, wow. Were you flying that?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And your ranch is gorgeous as well.
That's the airplane there. And this is a picture taken, the sun is directly over the airplane, so it looks like a fighter plane, but it's actually an early business jet with the big round windows in it. It was built in 1965.
Oh, wow.
This is another airplane we fly at Idaho. That's a Cy Marchetti S211, built by the Italians for the trainer competition. It's operated by the Singapore Air Force. Wonderful airplane. Very easy to fly.
It looks beautiful.
There's a Learjet, same as Sultan's house, is a Learjet 24F, serial number 323, very late model. This is another airplane we fly in Idaho. It's a bush plane. It's a Pilatus PC-6 tail dragger. Got to use your feet a lot. This is a Tiger Cat, my Tiger Cat. This may be Rod Lewis's. Is that your Bearcat in the back? Yeah. Two beautiful airplanes, Navy airplanes. They were both aircraft carrier fighters.
It looks gorgeous.
Yeah, they're really wonderful. Now, here's a fascinating airplane. This is the Mars. And Prince Sultan flew this airplane. I have a picture of him flying it here. This airplane is larger than a 747.
It looks huge.
Here's another picture flying in Idaho in the Learjet.
I think you're making everyone here want to go to Idaho.
Oh, yeah, Idaho's great. You're all welcome to come. This is another training airplane we fly up to turbine-powered PT-6 Pilatus PC-7. Wonderful airplane to fly.
This is how you fly, Captain Joe, right? Reversed.
So you can hang from the straps. Like
yes,
Sultan's
just like
first flight.
as if you were in a space shuttle, right?
Yeah. This is another train. This is a fabulous airplane. This is a Tucano. And it's a French Air Force airplane. And these are built by the Brazilians. They really build good airplanes. This is another picture of the Tiger Cat out over the water. That's Lake Pyramid Lake or Lake Mead, one of those. That's an in-flight of the, similar to the videos. Picture of Sultan flying the Learjet in and out of Idaho.
Looking good, Prince Sultan.
He's always smiling when he's in an airplane.
Of course he is. He's an aviator.
I don't know what he's doing here. He's wigging his wings. These are some vertical shots of the Lear just up doing some training aerobatics. I think, wait a minute, oh yeah. This is the airplane. I want to bring the guys up in a second. This is the Gulfstream that we set the record from Fort Lauderdale. Wasn't quite as fast as the space shuttle, but we went from Fort Lauderdale to Riyadh nonstop, 13 hours and 46 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And thank you to the controllers, by the way, here who were so nice to us to let us shoot straight in when we didn't have a lot of fuel left, but we had plenty.
Oh, wow. They broke a world record just this week, right?
Yes.
13.46 minutes, 13 hours and 46 minutes from
Right.
Florida up until Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Right.
With 4 pilots. Can we have them come up here and stay?
Yeah, well, let's a couple more pictures and
Yeah.
we'll bring them up. This is a TA-4, a Navy airplane. We have them fly in for the military every year. We bring a bunch of Navy fighters in. This is where we keep the hangars in them. This is a very remote part of Idaho, so we can do a lot of training flying, and it's really fun.
That's a gorgeous hangar.
This is my Learjet there. This is a new airplane we've been flying there. It's called a Game Bird. It's going to be Chilean Air Force just used. This is a training for advanced fighters.
Aerobatic airplane, right?
Yes. Here's an unusual airplane. We set a record in this, 531.29 miles an hour, which is the fastest propeller-driven piston engine airplane in the world. Now, what's interesting is we went to set the record, but you have to beat it by 3%, and that's held by Rod's airplane. So he officially still holds the record, even though this went faster because we didn't go fast enough. But he owns the Rare Bear, which is the Reno winner, and this is also a Reno winner. But we redid the aerodynamics with our company on this to change the shock waves. And he's doing about 556 miles an hour in that straight pass.
We truly have pioneers in this room.
Yeah. And then, oh yeah, this is good. There's, to give you an idea
Such a
how
beautiful
big this
selfie.
airplane is, there's Sultan in the front. Look at us standing on the horizontal stabilizers.
It's huge.
Yes, it's big.
It's
That's at
huge.
Oshkosh.
Look at that there.
And the fellow standing on to my right on the wing, on the horizontal stabilizer, is Wayne Colson, who's the guy who's building the 737s with the fire dropping down in water bombers in Australia.
It's a
That's
huge
Sultan and I.
airplane.
It's huge. But here's Sultan flying it. This is takeoff. It takes about 15,000 feet when it's full of water to take off.
15,000 feet. You look so relaxed, Prince Sultan.
It takes forever to get off, but it gets.
It's beautiful.
This is This is where we first met. This is at the eBay show in Geneva. Prince Sultan is an avid. He's always going around and looking at the new airplanes and telling people about Saudi Arabia, and that's his son Salman. This is when we first landed in Saudi Arabia about 5 years ago here, our greeting committee.
This was your first trip to Saudi
Yes.
Arabia, right? And this is your second trip, the one you're with us in.
Well,
today.
actually, my first trip was to see, I came on a winglet trip to see Prince Al-Walid about 15 years ago. He wanted to put him on his 767, which we subsequently did the whole fleet of 767s. And I think this is about, these are just some ending pictures here at the end. Sultan and myself. That's his Gulfstream 5. He flew in there.
This is again in Idaho.
Pardon?
This picture is
At
in your
my
ranch
ranch.
as well?
Yes. In Idaho. There's Clay Lacey. He's and I at my standing in my tower. Clay is really an amazing aviator. He's done. He's in the the National Aviation Hall of Fame. One of the most respected pilots, and I was fortunate enough to have him train me at a very young age. He was a mentor. I went for a ride in a Learjet in 1965 at the Reno Air Races, and ever since then, it ignited my passion. I've been in aviation.
Oh, wow.
All because of this guy.
He was a huge role in
Good
your
friend
life.
of Sultan's. Here's Long and Sultan and the Kodiak, which is, I think, right around here someplace. And this is Wayne Colson and his family, and Clay Lacey and Sultan and I in Oshkosh. And here's my girlfriend.
She's Saudi, yeah?
Yeah. And this is a couple of shots at the end. This is a low pass. And there's one last video here that's kind of it's an unusual one. Flip to the next.
There we go.
So I'm the white dot. This is a smoke system. We use this airplane for air shows too. Learjet built an amazing airplane. Amazing airplane. And this is the end. This is when after all the guests have left the air show, the airplanes are sitting around watching a movie. Thank you very much, and thank you for Sultan for inviting me. This has been very special. I wonder if we can have the other fellows that flew on the record trip come up for a minute?
Yes.
See if anybody has
It was 4
questions?
pilots in the plane, right?
4, yes.
4 pilots in the plane from Florida up until over here in Riyadh. 13 hours and 46 minutes, correct? You guys are amazing.
Okay.
You
First
guys
one
are
is Mark
amazing.
Rands here. He's the chief pilot on the G5. David Bauer, he's a 767 captain flying with us. And Travis Holland, who did the flight planning. We all flew to different legs in the flight, and it was great. It was, you might want to say for a minute a little bit about the flight planning, Travis, because I think that was real key.
Yeah, one of the big challenges of this flight is the first part of the segment is over the open ocean, and normally it's not possible to climb or change altitudes over the ocean. But there was no way we were going to be able to make the flight work unless we could continue to gain altitude over the Atlantic as we crossed. So we were very fortunate we got to block altitudes, and we actually, Joe and I flew most of the night together. We climbed 100 feet at a time about every 10 or 15 minutes as the plane's performance allowed to get the maximum endurance. So that was one of the special things.
Great. Do you want to say anything, Mark?
Well, originally the trip was to go out of Seattle, and at that time there just wasn't going to be enough range. But as Joe's schedules changed, as we know, we ended up in Florida. So all of a sudden we're thinking about this, well, we might be able to make it. And so I got up with Travis, and we kind of ran the numbers. We even had another group kind of check them out. And again, we just kind of got in, and we kind of had a backup plan. If necessary, we could drop into Egypt. But as we continued, we kind of slowly gained a little bit more fuel and a little bit more fuel. And we just kept going. And we landed with just about 3,000 pounds, which at that time was about an hour's worth of fuel left. So still had about an hour to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Dave, you want to say something?
Just,
Dave's new to the Gulfstream. He's a 767 big boy, but
yeah. So it was a good trip. The thing about the Gulfstream that I'm learning is that we flew slow, which is unusual. We did long range cruise instead of 8.3 or 8.5, which is a big factor in getting that kind of distance and time. I think we ended at 49. Yeah, flight level 490. Yeah.
we started at 41, flew up to 49,000.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions about the trip over it all? Well, highest altitude was 49,000.
If we can, anyone has any questions prior to taking out? I mean, Joe Clark, along with all of the pilots, they broke a world record just this week.
Did you get any sleep on the plane?
I think we each took naps, 3 or 4 hours.
Not much food, right?
No, we didn't eat. We eat very light.
Okay.
We were serious. We knew we were coming to your air show, and if we didn't do it right, we were going to be embarrassed.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I'd like to thank you, Prince Sultan, for the opportunity to come here, and again, Joe, to go on the trip. So thank you guys very much.
My mission in life is to go to Florida in a G550 and beat your record.
Yeah. I'm sure you probably will.
Put Joe in his place.
Yeah. But thank you again
Well
for
done.
inviting us. It's a real treat, and to be really at the beginning of your Oshkosh type event here. It's an honor for
Yes,
us,
sir.
and thank you so much.
We are honored to have you here. Thank you so much. Today has been incredible, so inspirational, and absolutely overwhelming from the amount of inspiration we got. We have tomorrow, and we have after tomorrow, and we have amazing personalities such as Captain Joe Clark and amazing pioneers in the aviation industry. I hope you can make it with us tomorrow and after. And today, please stick around. There is a light lunch, and we also have an incredible air show. Captain Joe, captains, we are so happy to have you in Saudi, and we're so happy to have you on stage as well. Thank you again. If I can kindly ask all aviators and all pilots to come to the stage for a group picture with Prince Sultan. I'm sorry, we don't have an actual plane on stage, but you guys being here will be enough. I'm sorry? That's very true. All pilots and aviators, please come to the stage. It looks. Go ahead. Hello, how are you? You're Paul, right?
I'm Klaus.
You're Klaus, yes. Go ahead, please. John and Martha, please. Sorry. It's going to be a packed stage, so we can just do 2 rows if you want. We can do 1 row over here and 1 row behind it. So anyone that's tall, please stand in the 2nd row. You want to come over?